Bart, this is Jonathan Brader. We are about to start the meeting live. You're going to be on mute until the item comes up you requested to speak on, and then you'll be able to speak on that item. I think we're ready to go.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is Jeanette Bradshaw, and I'd like to welcome you to the Michigan Board of State Canvassers meeting. With that, I want to I'm going to hand it over to Director Jonathan Brader to explain how our meetings are held for virtual. Sorry. Go ahead, Director Brader.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw. This is Jonathan Brader. The meeting notice was posted in accordance with the Open Meetings Act, and this meeting is being held remotely under Executive Order 2020-154. The meeting is being broadcast and is open to the public on the Microsoft Teams Live software. Those individuals who have requested to speak on individual items have been given a call-in number, and they will be able to speak when those items come up. If other members of the public wish to comment on items, they can do so by using the chat feature on Teams. We request that you use your name as you would in a live meeting, and also comment on the item that is currently up on the agenda only. Additionally, a couple other things, because this is a remote meeting, we're going to be doing all votes by roll call vote. Adam Fracassi will be taking the roll for roll call votes, and we're going to ask that people do their best to try to identify themselves before speaking, so that Marcy, our court reporter, is able to keep track of who's speaking. So with that, I will hand it back to you, Chair Bradshaw. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Brader. We are going to go to the consideration of the minutes for approval from our meeting that was held on August 11th, 2020.
This is Member Matuzik. I move approval of the minutes as printed.
Vice Chairman Lingenfeld here, I'll support.
Okay, it's been moved and supported to approve our minutes from our meeting held on August 11th, 2020. Is there any discussion? Hear none. All those in, Adam, will you please take the roll call vote?
Yes, this is Adam. Madam Chair.
Yes.
Vice Chair Van Langeveld.
Yes.
Member Matuzik.
Yes.
Member Schinkel.
Yes.
Madam Chair, you have 4 yeas and 0 nays.
The motion is moved. So we will move to our second item on our agenda, which is the canvass and certification of the results of the August 4th, 2020 primary election. Director Brader.
Thank you, Chair Bradshaw. This is Jonathan Brader. So the item up for discussion is the canvass and certification of the results of the August 4th, 2020 primary election. We did receive certification from all 83 counties. The total turnout for all counties was 2,520,850. I will just note that that was a record for turnout in an August election. We have, I know that there was a request from at least one board member to discuss specific county canvass results. And also, I believe we have a request from one member of the public to speak on the certification question. So I would just defer to the board in terms of the order in which they want to discuss those things. But we do have a request from a member of the public, and I know that at least one board member would like to discuss specific counties. So whatever you prefer to do, Chair Bradshaw.
Okay. Board members, how would you like to move forward?
Well, this is Norm, and obviously I think people are aware of the serious problems there were in Detroit, at least the Detroit AV comp, where there could have been more than that in Detroit. But I mean, I've been there a couple times for the AV count, and it is a big process. I know Carol Pierce has been there as a monitor for the Secretary of State in years past. I'm not sure if she was there this past time. But I think we've got election workers that were at the end of the evening saying their precincts balanced, and come to find out later they didn't balance. They found votes that weren't there. And this is criminal. They should be somehow penalized, and for sure never allowed to work in a precinct again. And we need to look into this. And I asked Jonathan for a report as far as what he sees, what happened in Detroit. And that's what I'm hoping we have today.
Okay, so would you like to start with that first? Is that what you're asking for?
I don't have a timetable on that, just as long as we get it before we
Okay.
end today. I mean, the question is, what do we do about this going forward? I mean, it's a serious question, and I don't have a proposed answer, but we need to fix this problem because we can't recount Detroit right now. It's impossible to. So how do we fix that?
So is it, Director Brader, I just want to make sure that we're covering this. Is it possible for us to certify the results of the surrounding areas and then focus on Wayne County after?
I'm not sure. I believe the question is where the counties have all certified. I'm not sure if there's a procedure to certify them individually. I'm curious if Adam or Lori has an opinion on that question. I'm not really sure. I've never encountered that before.
Yeah, it's just a
Madam
question.
Chair,
Yes.
just to let you know, the member of the public is here. Call me when you want me to speak.
Okay. Yes, I will. I right now we would like to, if any of the other board members, have additional suggestions or other
Well,
comments or concerns.
This is Member Matusek. If the local boards have certified and they have made appropriate notes about what didn't work and what did work, I'm not clear. We are not the body that could request a recall or a challenge in any way. I think at this point we have to accept the local board's decision. But then I totally agree with Norm. I would like to look at the Wayne County resolution they gave to us asking for help in the next set of elections. But I'm not clear what we can do if the local counties have certified.
I think I'd like to actually at this, I know we have a question submitted online, and I know that we have someone else wishing to speak. So if the board members are okay, would you like to hear from those questions and that individual first before we move on?
Yes, please.
Yeah, it's okay with me. Norm.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So I think what we'll do is we're going to go on to our individual who had requested to speak, and I know he's on the phone, and if I mispronounce your last name, I do apologize. Max Robart, and you would hit *6 to unmute yourself, and we will have you sworn in by our court reporter, Marcy, so I'm just going to give her a few minutes to get unmuted and go from there. So Marcy, are you ready?
I am here.
And Max, are you unmuted?
Yes, I'm currently unmuted.
Okay, I'm going to have our court reporter, Marcy, swear you in.
Would you raise your right hand?
It is raised.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you are about to give will be the whole truth?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Mr. Robart, I believe I have that pronounced. I'm sure you would have corrected me if I was wrong on that one. We're going to go to our 3-minute rule that we normally have, so go ahead.
Okay, just to let you know, this is more my opinion than an actual factual statement, but I believe the board needs to take this into account. My name is Max Rothbart. In 2017, I wrote my undergraduate thesis on the 2016 presidential election in Michigan, explaining why election administration in Detroit was a problem and how it could have undermined confidence in the integrity of all elections in the United States. In 2020, we have multiple groups, including foreign governments, hostile to the interests of our nation, who are trying to undermine the confidence in our elections. Imagine my horror when the city of Detroit had 72% of absentee precincts having more or less votes cast than the number of voters who voted in the election you are certifying today. The world is watching our elections, and you can bet that foreign governments are going to use what happened in Detroit as an opportunity to drive a narrative not only to destabilize the foundations of the United States of America, but to justify their own authoritarian governments back home. I know from my research that these problems are from incompetence, not widespread fraud. At the same time, if the numbers do not match in 72% of a community's precincts, how can we really know who won or lost the election in that community? There are mistakes in every election. That is to be expected. But 72% is unacceptable. Some people claim that this is from implementing the new absentee voting rights in our Constitution. But that argument is undermined knowing that the same incompetence with standards happened in 2016, years before no reason absentee voting was the law in Michigan. The worst part is the people who suffer the most from this incompetence are the residents of the city of Detroit, a city with a long history of racial tension, violence, and discrimination. The State Board of Canvassers and other officials need to take radical action to fix the incompetence of Detroit election officials, or it could very well undermine the United States of America by attacking the very foundations of our democracy. Stories of Americans not trusting our elections has a bloody history. If we cannot trust who has won or lost an election and do not have a process to fix it, things can quickly spiral out of control to what happened in Kansas during the mid-1850s. Those of you who know your history know what happened in Kansas was only a preview of what would become the American Civil War. Election integrity is serious, and the stakes can become life and death if we no longer trust the system. The stakes are too high for us to ignore what is happening, and action must be taken now. Thank you. And that concludes my comments. I yield my time.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Robart. Any questions from the board members?
Well, this is Norm. I'll take Max's yielded time. I mean, the certification, I mean, there's nothing we can do. We can't say you're going to redo the election. I mean, that's just not possible. But, I mean, I don't know what the solution is, and I'm not sure who was on this call from the Secretary of State's office. But, you know, can the Secretary of State's office run the AV Count Board in Detroit this November? I mean, that's a question I have. Is there anybody on this call that can even address that question?
So Chair Bradshaw, this is Jonathan Brader. I'm happy to just share some thoughts on this. And I will just add, I do agree that it's sort of an up or down vote on certification. We're not aware of any kind of county by county process here. But so let me just say a couple of things. There was a resolution that the Wayne County Board of County Canvassers sent to the Secretary of State, and I shared that with all of you. It's basically they're asking for the Secretary of State to appoint a monitor to supervise training and administration of the City of Detroit absent voter counting boards, and that also there be an investigation essentially of the training and processes that were used. Although there's not, a provision in the election law specifically for election monitors, the Bureau of Elections certainly will be working extensively with Detroit and Wayne County to drill down on exactly what the cause of these issues was and what we need to do to prevent them for November. I think that, to Board Member Schickel's question, there are avenues through which the Department of State, the Bureau of Elections can direct specific election functions through the Secretary of State's role as the chief election officer for the state. In general, the practice is to do as little as possible for, both because we have locally run elections and also because just logistically speaking, we don't actually just have the capacity in terms of person power to run people's elections for them. That said, we absolutely will be working closely with Detroit through Election Day to address these issues and also, to keep an eye on them on Election Day itself. In terms of some of the specific things that were reported as out of balance, I'll just make a couple of notes. First of all, it is, I'm not going to get into too much detail about exactly what we think happened or didn't happen because I want, and I think staff wants to have more of an opportunity to speak with the city and the county before we speculate on the exact specific causes of things. But in terms of what we did see out of the county canvass over the last week and a half, a couple of things. One, I'll just note that the 72% figure refers to the percentage of the absent voter counting boards that were out of balance, not the overall number in the city, although it was still a high percentage. the couple of reasons that, we're confident are at issue here that definitely need attention are, number one, we saw instances reported where absent voter ballots were received by the city, but were not recorded into the qualified voter file as having been received. So that the city had the envelope and the ballot inside of it, but they had not actually put into the qualified voter file that we received this envelope. The problem with that is that that's what the poll book is based on. So if you don't receive the envelope into the QVF and report it, that throws off your numbers, because now you've got one more ballot in that precinct than you have names on the poll book. So that can be figured out after the fact, but especially in a large city with 80,000 absent voter ballots, that takes some doing to sift through all those. So that was certainly one of the causes for some precincts that had fewer or that had more ballots tabulated than names in the poll book, was that the envelope hadn't been recorded as of the time the poll books were finalized. A related issue was, it'll also happen that absent voter ballots do come in after the poll books are finalized, because the poll books are finalized prior to Election Day, and absent voter ballots can continue to come in until Election Day itself. So when that happens, the procedure, and that's okay, but when that happens, the procedure is that the election inspectors are supposed to handwrite the name of the voter onto the poll book when the ballot is tabulated, so that you can then see, okay, yeah, the computer numbers are off by one, but we have this balanced out. And that did not happen uniformly either. There were errors in recording that. So those are some of the reasons that for individual precincts, there were essentially more votes tabulated than names in the poll book. The opposite problem can also occur where you end up with more with more names in the poll book than ballots, if people are writing in names into the wrong precinct. So for example, if a ballot comes in on Election Day and it's supposed to go to precinct 5, but someone goes over and sort of writes the name in on precinct 7, then they realize, oh wait, actually this was supposed to be back in precinct 5. They've now written that name on precinct 7, but they didn't actually tabulate the ballot there, and they didn't cross the name off. So then what happens is for that precinct, you might have more names in the poll book than ballots tabulated. So that's an example of where you can actually be under in terms of ballots. Now, these are not necessarily the full extent of the problem. I think we really need to dig in and figure out exactly exactly what's occurring and exactly what the solution is. But I think those are just 2 points that we're going to need to work with the city on. One is the uniform, complete recording of envelopes having been received, so that your poll books are complete and accurate, and then also on Election Day to make sure that that those ballots that come in late are being properly indicated and hand marked in the poll book, so you don't have these balancing issues. I think that those are 2 issues that we know need attention. I think there's probably other things that we'll drill down on after further discussion with the city. But I mean, absolutely, the Bureau of Elections plans to work very closely with the city and the county on this as we get ready for November.
So I guess my question to Director Brader, this is Chair Bradshaw, is what is the process when we do have a county board of canvass or a county board of canvassers making a resolution to the state board of canvassers?
Well,
if I'm right, the last time that we came into Wayne County was actually in 2013 when I got appointed to the board for the first time, and then we did the reevaluation of the write-in election for the city of Detroit mayor. So that's the second part of it is, like, I remember us going in, but I'm wondering what is that process with that resolution? What happens when a county board of canvassers, regardless of what county in the state of Michigan, sends us a resolution asking for overseeing?
Yeah. So this resolution was directed to the Secretary of State. So they're not, as I read this resolution, they're not necessarily asking you to do anything specifically. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the way that the boards of county canvassers kind of communicate with this board, for lack of a better word, is they either certify or they don't certify. They can obviously include additional information in their canvass or in whatever statement they put out if they want the state board to consider that. In 2013, what occurred was that the county board actually did not certify certain results. And when the county board does not certify, then by operation of law, the state board is required to certify. So in that case, sort of by not certifying, they told you had to do it. In this case, expressing the concerns that they expressed, they nevertheless did actually certify the election. So we're in a different procedural situation here. But certainly with this resolution directed to the Secretary of State, the Bureau of Elections does plan to take action to follow up along the lines that I already described. And obviously we will keep this board, apprised of that as well, and certainly respond to any input or requests that this board has as well.
Julie, this is Norm. And working with Detroit, keeping an eye on Detroit isn't going to do anything. I mean, right now we need to investigate what happened. We need to go in there and open up some of these ballot boxes in these AV precincts that haven't been opened and find out how many people shouldn't be working there in the fall. I mean, we got to do our job here. We can't just say we're going to work with them. I mean, come on, we need an investigation.
This is Jonathan. I'm happy to respond. The reason I'm not suggesting any specific action that we would or not take. I think one of the things that I want to do is make sure that we get as much information as we can from the city and from the county. And at this point, I think we need to have more discussion and more, I think the term investigation, I don't object to that necessarily. I just think that we need to get more information in our hands before we're able to really recommend specific steps.
Well, this is Norm again. How long will that take, John?
Well,
Another election is creeping up on us really quick. I mean, if we're going to do something substantive, we got to act now to go in there and do this investigation. We can't collect information for 2 weeks.
Well, we certainly have some important deadlines that are coming our way. I mean, starting on September 24th, that's when, the majority of absent voter ballots, that's the 40th day before the election. So that's when absent voter ballots are going to start getting mailed out in most places. They'll start getting received shortly thereafter. So certainly for the procedure involving recording of absent voter ballot envelopes, that's something that we need to act immediately on to make sure that that procedure is being handled better. And then shortly after that, we're going to be getting into the appointment of election inspectors and training. So I agree that we do need to act immediately.
Well, Jonathan, when you say so it works well, can the Secretary of State mandate certain things in a jurisdiction like Detroit?
So, I mean, the Secretary of State and the Bureau of Elections, we already have a procedure that the jurisdictions are supposed to follow when they receive absent voter ballots. So currently, when an absent voter ballot is received, it is supposed to be recorded in the qualified voter file. So that for that issue, I think I would look at it as a compliance with existing requirements as opposed to something new. But I do think that as we look at, and sort of see if there are any patterns or reasons why ballots weren't being recorded uniformly, that might warrant having specific additional requirements or recommendations for the city to make sure that this doesn't happen again.
Well, Jonathan, compliance with existing requirements, I mean, that concept was thrown out the window for this past primary election. So, I mean, what are we going to do about it? We can't just say, oh yeah, we're going to work with them. I mean, I think we need an investigation and with a conclusion that somebody else is going to run that election or not. And if the Secretary of State can go in there and mandate what happens and how procedures work, then we should do it. If that's what we decide, or it's not going to be us probably, but I don't know. It's got to be you guys. It's got to be Jocelyn and John and you guys do this. You got to make it right. We got to have a decent election coming up here.
Madam Chair, may I jump in real quick?
just 1 minute, Erin, and I apologize. It seems, I just want to make sure that we are still broadcasting. I just want to make sure that that people can still hear us. I've been watching some questions and answers that have been coming up about people who can no longer.
The Teams link is not working. The call is.
Okay, so they can still hear us because I know one of them was a news outlet too. I'm just pausing for a minute, guys, just to make sure that we still stay open.
Oh, it says the video player stopped working due to a network error. Please check your network connection and try again.
Okay, but we should still, they can, I'm just making sure we're still can hear. Okay, I'm getting some people that are saying that they can hear. All right, go ahead, Erin. I apologize. I just want to make sure that we are still open to everyone and be available.
Thank you very much. I just want to, jump in here and say I agree with Member Schenkel's concerns. This issue is very troubling, and I agree and think that a repeat performance is going to seriously undermine the public's confidence in the general election, and I think that would just be unacceptable. The current situation is unacceptable. It's a serious problem, and I think we need some serious solutions. So I would just encourage, the Secretary of State, the Bureau, to take whatever steps they can to address this situation, correct the problem.
This is Member Matuzik. I'm in complete agreement. I find this whole thing appalling. I also understand that in Michigan election law, we've created this series, hundreds of little fiefdoms. Each clerk runs their thing their way, and then we have limited ability to do things. But this is ridiculous. And it's not just the AV stuff. I mean, I'm looking at this report, and there were incomplete poll book data. We had 46 precincts with missing tapes. How does that happen? Ballots stuck in machines. This is just sloppiness. This is poor training. This is sloppiness. This is folks who are very tired at the end of the day. I totally and completely get that. And I would encourage the clerk or whomever to really step up a community program to get more people involved in being precinct workers. But there are some serious questions here that, it just undermines the whole process. And I have a particular question under the provisional ballot report, which talks about, on the Out County one, it said there were 0 provisional envelope ballots, there were 6 provisional affidavit ballots, and 256 voters not in possession of picture ID. Did those folks not sign? Were they not offered affidavit ballots because they didn't have ID? And then in the city of Detroit, it had 668 voters not in possession of ID, but only 31 provisional affidavit ballots. Are we telling people they can't vote if they don't have picture ID? Because that is not what the law says.
So I can respond to that specifically. This is Jonathan Brader. So when a voter signs, what that was referring to is voters who are signing an affidavit of a voter not in possession of a picture ID. So under the Michigan election law, you're requested to show ID. If you have it, you have to show it. If you don't, you can sign an affidavit, at which point you get to vote. But it is required that that be remarked, that the number of people who signed those be remarked in the poll book.
All right, so those are folks who actually got to vote.
Correct.
All right. So I'm going to echo my fellow board members. It is very alarming and very concerning. and to have the county board reaching out with that memorandum to the Secretary of State's office. How can we go forward in November when we have issues like these? And voter disfranchising voters. And I get it. It's a long day, and I know even in my area, those workers were working 17.5 hours, and I know that there were more that worked longer. And I think this really shines that the one thing that we hold dear is our right to vote, and we really need to step up and get people involved to keep this right and doing it correctly. And I've been, Norm, I know you've done AVs. I was there for a number of recounts and seeing seeing when they open up the ballot box and seeing when they open up the ballot bag and they see those precinct bags. And, the amount of detail that we put into our elections to make sure that they are secure and they are done correctly, and that that everything is done correctly, and to hear these and to read these reports, it's just really disheartening. So I just want to echo my fellow board members and where we are at and what we can do as this board. But I'm trying to also juggle and see any questions that we have. I know I have people who are listing items. If you are listening, we really need you to be able to type in your questions so that we can present. It can be presented to us. If I just have a name right now, if you don't have a call-in number, which we only had one person requesting, really need you to actually type out the questions that you want. I just wanted to kind of make that announcement because I've been watching the question and answer, but I only see a name, but I don't see a question, and that makes it a little hard for me and our fellow board members to address those. I don't want to move forward because I know that there are some questions. Any other comments from the board members? I do have one before, and that's procedural. If we move to certify, are we still able to have this conversation?
This is not honestly how we cannot certify.
I don't see why not.
We have to tell the people that won, they won. But
Right.
The question is, I would like, in addition to a report on what happened, I would like our attorneys to tell us, legally, what can we do about it? Can the Secretary of State run that election? Can they come in and commandeer the employees and run the election? Can we do that? What is the range of possibilities that we have? Or do we have to hire all new people to go in there, which doesn't make a lot of sense? No, the fact that we have to fix the problems, and just monitoring another failed election isn't going to be the answer. So I'd like our legal team to tell us what the parameters are of what can be done. Not that we're going to do it, but what can be done. And then we need to physically go in there. And look at those ballot boxes and see how bad the problem was. I think we're just scratching the surface of some of these written reports we're seeing right now.
Would any of our legal representation like to answer, or?
Well, hi, this is Heather Meingas from the AG's office. Obviously, haven't really thought about the scope or the depth of what could be done, just having listened today. But, I would echo what Director Brader has already stated to the board, is that the Secretary of State does have, supervisory authority over local election officials under the specifically under the statutes in the election code. So she does have that power, and she has exercised, supervisory control over various clerk offices or functions. In fact, they're overseeing, I believe, Jonathan, you can correct me, I can't remember if it's the Southfield City Clerk office right now, but we do things. So she can do that. We can have people, the Bureau of Elections folks down working within these communities.
I'm sorry. I think I just got another note. We lost our feed again. Can we just double check? I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Can we double check to see if we still have our feed.
As we're checking that, Heather, this is Norm. Does supervisory control mean that we run the election?
Norm, I'm not entirely, I mean, what does that term necessarily mean? Would we come in and take over every function and have no local person there? I'm not sure that, it could probably mean what we need it, what would be required under the circumstances. I think.
I can't imagine we're going to take over every function. I'm talking about supervising, that we direct the employees, train them, direct them. And obviously get some new election day workers. That's obvious. I mean, some of those people should not be back. The ones that said their poll books balanced when they indeed knew for a fact they didn't, they just shouldn't be back. We got to ID those people and get them out of the system. But I think the supervisory control is controlling the running of the election, not necessarily hiring everybody that sits there and, gets people's signatures when they show up to vote.
Hey, if I can have either Adam or someone let me know if we are broadcasting, because I am still getting messages that they are not, no one can hear us.
Madam Chair, this is Adam. I had another staff member that we have here in the office, and she just came in and said that it's out for her still right now.
Okay, so I would like to recess until we can get this audio fixed. I know that we're in the middle of good conversation, but I want to make sure that we still are open.
Okay, I'll be right here waiting for you to call us back in, Jeanette.
No problem, Norm. Can we put a notice out onto, unless Carol's already grabbed it for me, that we are in recess until we can get our audio back up?
Oh, I just want to say, even my comments before, while you're in recess, thank you for all the work you guys do. You guys are the best. And I know this is a really hard situation. There's no easy choices, but I really feel for you guys. You're doing a great job.
Well, thank you, Max. I am, all right.
Okay, this is the point where I'm going to be bringing in my commentary. Sorry. Okay, the meeting stays on recess. The meeting stays on recess for a number. Oh, sorry about that, my cat. For an additional about 90 minutes. During that time, no one talks about the board certifying or anything even remotely connected to the business of the election. There's no real decisions made about it. It seems fully, based on what I know from my political experiences, it seems to be in order. The only conversations that continue past this point are ones about, hey, are people back on? Is there still a problem? What problems are going with the stream? And finally, about an hour after this period starts of the recess, they start talking about rescheduling the meeting. They continue talking about rescheduling. About an hour and 10 minutes, the stream comes back up, but there's a number of concerns from the lawyers at this meeting that there could be a Open Meetings Act problem. So out of abundance of caution, the board decided to adjourn this meeting and to meet again on Monday at 10 o'clock to actually certify the results. This is a really bad issue. The state needs to take care of this. And I'm interested in hearing what is going to happen on Monday. So this is my recording of the team speak before I close it down. I just want to make sure there's a record of this. There's a court reporter, but they don't post that info. So I think it's important. Honestly, they should post that info, but they don't. So I am going to end this recording right now and put this up so everyone can view it. Thank you.